Martin Giles of the Guildford Dragon News, and I'm once again with Pedro Wrobel, who's the Joint Chief Executive Officer of Guildford and Waverley Borough Councils. Pedro, thank you for giving your time again to the Guildford Dragon News. Now, you've been in the job 6 months now.
Yeah.
Time flies, but can you just give a summary of your reflections on that first 6 months?
Of course. It's been amazing actually, and when I look back on it, I think it's been a really positive time. I am hugely impressed by the commitment and the quality of people at Guildford and Waverley Borough Council who come in every day to do the right thing and get the right results for residents and businesses across Guildford and Waverley. And I think those people, what they really wanted was a bit of direction and structure, and that's what a chief exec hopefully brings: a sense of direction, of corporate identity, of that setting of culture. And I think that's what the values, which we'll come on to talk about, help to define.
So you've published some shared values, which
Yes.
I guess are to help this direction for all the workers in the council and perhaps the councillors too, but certainly the council officers. And it says the subtitle is How We Treat Each Other. So I'd like to look at them in turn and get your interpretation of them, and also how you think it will help the council deliver, because of course that's the end goal, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So first one is collaboration. Now, what do you mean by that?
So I think the setback of all of this, I'm looking over here because I've got a laminated copy of these, which I know you're looking at as well. Look, I think what the step back kind of all of this is that the point of the council, the point of any council, and this is a shared set of values for officers across Guildford and Waverley Borough Councils, and it was kind of developed bottom up from by and for staff. So it was entirely developed through conversations with staff, through staff briefings, through manager meetings, through team meetings, and all of that information was kind of brought together, and then kind of versions of this was tested with staff so that the end result is something that everybody is already bought into and already recognises. And the question we were asking people is, when we are at our best, what are the values that we represent? And that comes back to what is the purpose of a council. And the purpose of a council is to serve our residents and businesses, and to do so in the best way possible. So that's what this is supposed to be. How do we behave when we're at our best, and how do we hold ourselves to those principles? So you asked me about collaboration. Collaboration for me is twofold. It's firstly about remembering that a council is one element in a bigger system. So we can only work, and we are only at our best when we work with our residents, our businesses, our partners, and recognise ourselves as part of that system. Or to put it another way, our best power is the power to convene. But it's also about how we collaborate within a council, so that you, as a resident, don't see the various teams within the council. You see a single coherent service geared towards delivering the best results for you. That's the point of this.
Okay, but I think if we went out into some parts of the borough, they might say, well, we don't feel that there is much collaboration. We have our views. They don't seem to be listened to. So we're not sure that there's much evidence of this collaboration. What would you say to them?
I'd say it's a journey, and I would recognise that we are not yet in the place where we have that kind of where we're living all of these principles every day in every element of what we do, but we will be. And I think I am out there in Guildford, in Waverley. Often earlier today I was out in Send with one of our councillors, going around the ward, just kind of seeing what's happening and talking to people. And I think we have to be able to hear that. And I think
probably did hear that in Send, I suspect.
I did, and I mean, we're not there yet, but in order to collaborate, we need to be clear about our common purpose. So, another time we'll talk about our corporate strategy, which we published in July, but that sets out the common purpose, the objectives we want to kind of get to. So that's our what. but this is about our how. So how do we do it, work with each other? That collaboration is something that we are building amongst our teams. It'll take time. Culture always takes time to change. I think you had a cartoon about that. You know, it takes time to change, but I think we're on that journey, and I see evidence of that every day.
But you can't be all things to all people. I mean, there will be choices to make, unpopular choices sometimes in some quarters. So how are you going to persuade people that collaboration doesn't just mean they get their own way?
I think that comes to some of those other you know, I mean, it's a great question, but it comes to some of those other values that we want to express.
And of course, one collaboration that a lot of people have got in mind at the moment is the collaboration between Guildford Borough Council and Waverley Borough Council. Now, I understand there's a review underway. Is that correct?
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
So what happens if that review comes to the conclusion that actually the disbenefits outweigh the benefits?
Well, then that's something we have to hear.
Okay.
But you know, that review is being carried out by local partnerships. So that is that's a consultancy wholly owned by the LGA and the Treasury. They are experts in local government, and we have set them two questions. The first question is what are the benefits, the net benefits of the collaboration, and that so up until now. So that is, what are the benefits minus the disbenefits on the financial side, and what are the benefits minus the disbenefits in terms of outcomes. Add that together. Has it been a net positive? Has it been a net negative? And how much in either direction?
Okay.
So I think it's probably, you know, it's almost certainly a net positive, but it's really important that, so I see this argument at the moment as an argument that we're having about the facts rather than about what's correct, what's the right, what do we do on the basis of evidence. So it's really important that we have that kind of common, objective, inarguable set of evidence on which we can base our decisions. So that's the point of that review. The second question we've asked them is, where is there further value for collaboration? Because that collaboration between Guildford and Waverley can go in all sorts of different directions. Where is the value? What is the size of the prize? And we've asked them to base that on whatever they can find in terms of, you know, we're not the first local government collaboration, so what's worked for other people, what's worked well, and looking beyond that, you know, at our services specifically, where is it that they see the sort of potential value? So I think that's a really key.
And with your 6 months of experience, are you still confident that the job of joint CEO of both councils isn't too big for one person, any one person?
I am extremely confident of that. I think there is, I think every day I see the benefits of that collaboration, that specific collaboration, in terms of, you know, things that you know, Waverley colleagues are helping Guildford colleagues on, or Guildford colleagues are helping Waverley colleagues on. You know, there are all sorts of lessons that we can kind of work together on, and you know, there are joint things that benefit both. So a recent example of that is the sort of, you know, enforcement around off-street parking that we're looking at, where a collaboration between the two of them is a win-win for both councils. So I think, you know, there are lots of opportunities like that that I think are really important to explore, and I think the joint chief exec role is actually means that I can do a better job for each council rather than a lesser job for each council.
And of course, there's other collaborations with other parts of government. So there's the county council, but also the central government. Can you understand how some residents might feel that the council has collaborated more upwards to impose the government policy downwards, rather than the other way around, of representing the residents upwards to the government?
Oh, right, okay. What would they?
Especially with planning.
Okay.
You know, I think a lot of them might feel that actually during the formation of the local plan, the council was too keen to take on board the pro-development argument, and therefore didn't represent strongly enough upwards. I mean, I have seen these views expressed upwards towards the central government.
I think that's a really, that comes to the kind of crux of a council's role, doesn't it? I mean, you know, the point of having local councils is that they represent the local. You know, that's what we're for. We've both been civil servants, and you know, civil servants do a brilliant job, but civil servants always look at a national context. And if there's one thing that COVID taught us, it's the importance of place-based solutions. And that is, with the best will in the world, sat in Marsham Street, where the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government are based, they are never going to be in a position to make the best decision purely for Guildford. That is what we are for, and that's what our planning function should be doing. Of course we have to take on board the national context and operate within that, but we have to apply that place-based lens. That is our role, and if we think that, for example, the numbers that have been given to us, aren't workable, then we need to represent that view back to government. And actually, that's a thing I particularly know how to do, having spent 20 years as a civil servant.
Okay, now I'm conscious of time, and it's my fault. We've spent probably too long on that first the subject. But going on to well-being, how would you define that?
No council, no organisation can operate without realising that its most important assets are its people. So it is our role and our duty to take care of our people, to nurture them, to train them, and to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to grow, so that what we have here is a group of people who are proud to work for Guildford and Waverley and want to come in every day and use every ounce of energy to get the best possible outcomes for residents.
Yeah, in the army we might call that morale. Is that similar?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things it says
but
under
more holistic.
More
it's
holistic.
Not just how people feel. It's everything that we put around them to make sure that people can be the best versions of themselves.
Okay. Now, one of the things it says here is under well-being is we stay resilient and raise any concerns we have. Now, I know whistleblowing is it's a delicate area, isn't it? Because you've got to get the balance right between people feeling they can raise something that they think should be considered or needs attention. At the same time, you don't want to encourage people to sort of just raise suspicion about other people without any evidence. How do you tackle that?
Well, we've got a new whistleblowing policy, and I think that's a really important kind of, again,
That's new?
Yeah, we've got a new whistleblowing policy to be really clear about how seriously we take whistleblowing. I think it's really important that we have a culture. Again, that word culture is going to come out a lot, because in essence, this is about defining a new culture in Guildford and Waverley, and helping people to kind of, to express that in everything that we do. But look, that we have to have a culture where if things aren't right, everyone is able to and supported to call it out. That doesn't mean that everything that's called out is always wrong, that the whistleblower, always gets everything
always
right.
Someone's fault, I guess.
Well, yeah, but it's all, there are things that it's just down to us to fix. But this all starts with making sure we've got the right systems in place, so that if you're seeing something wrong, we can call it out and we can take it seriously and we can deal with it. But I want it to go a step further. If we think we can do something better, call it out, bring it up. Let's, we want to support people to make those incremental improvements. That's what organisations around the place have done. Toyota made their name on that kind of approach to staff wellbeing.
Okay, so let's move on to the third one, trusted. Now, this really comprises of the Nolan principles. So the council has obviously always meant to have abided by the Nolan principles. Do you think it has a good track record of doing that?
So I've been here for 6 months, and I can say.
But you've spoken to people about what's gone on.
Yeah, and I think what's really important is that, and I'm not trying to avoid your question, Martin, but what's trusted goes very, very much along with the next two, value for money and professionalism. And I think what's really important here is our licence to operate as a council relies on our integrity. And that means, the Nolan principles have been around for decades and have served us right. And again, we've both been civil servants. We've been operating with these principles our whole professional lives. So, I think it's really important to put them at the heart of our values. And, put another way, a sort of less nerdy way, this is about making sure that we always do things the right way and are visibly seen to do things the right way. We are here to be professionals, we are here to be objective, we provide objective, evidence-based advice, and we make decisions in a way that is open and transparent, and any kind of fear or favour needs to be kept out of those conversations. And I think that's at the heart of how we operate as a council, and it's at the heart of kind of officer to member relationships as well.
How instinctively aware do you think councillors are of these?
I think nobody comes into public service, without wanting to make a positive difference. The heart of politics is we disagree on what that positive difference looks like and how we go about doing that. But I think everybody comes in, I think, wanting to express those principles, and I think it's our role as officers to make sure that we make that as easy as possible for everyone.
Okay, now recently we ran an article in the Dragon about Ashbridge and the release of a report that actually showed the council had decided to take a risk on whether Homes England would claw back some grant or not, because the conditions of the Section 106 under the agreement weren't precisely being met. I've spoken to a councillor that was party to that meeting at the executive level, and he agrees that we reported it accurately. Do you think that decision to keep that secret was compliant with the Nolan principles under openness?
So my understanding, having spoken to some of our lawyers and some of our officers who've worked on this, so my understanding is that Homes England have been absolutely clear, and the council has been absolutely clear with Homes England throughout the process about what was being done and the decisions that were being taken. And as far as I'm aware, there has been no secrecy in terms of, that's my understanding, that there's been no secrecy in terms of, going outside of the particular conditions that were required. That's my understanding of.
It was a confidential report.
So, my understanding is that we, Homes England are clear about the terms in which the bridge has been funded and are comfortable with it, and I think, as far as I'm aware,
but the report was clear that it did say if Homes England are aware of this, they may withdraw the grant.
So,
Okay.
I wasn't there. I don't know what that situation is.
Why I've raised it is because openness isn't easy always, and some people keep things secret, not because it's awkward. In fact, the councillor I spoke to said, well, he had a pragmatic view on it. The trouble is with that, it's a slippery slope. Once you allow ends to justify means, where does it end? So, I think we do expect our councillors to be scrupulous in their honesty, and quite rightly. And so, this kind of tactic shouldn't be employed. If they'd have said to Homes England, look, we can't do it quite that way, can we tweak the agreement? No problem. But they didn't, it seems to me, according to the report.
Well, look, there's a couple of things there. I mean, firstly, I completely agree that being open and transparent is not always the sort of easy thing to do.
No.
And I think one of the things, I told you the first time we met, one of the reasons I wanted to come to Guildford and Waverley is that when I first met Paul Follows and Julia McShane, the two leaders, one of the things they said to me is they want their administration and their officers to always do the right thing, not necessarily the easy thing. And I think that speaks exactly to what you're talking about. So, I want us, and I know both of our leaders want us to be open and transparent in everything that we do, even if it's hard. And I'll give you an example of that. I know that another time we'll talk about the corporate strategy, but one of the things one of the things we're going to do with that corporate strategy is, having published the strategy, we're now going through our budget, or we'll essentially make resource allocation choices in line with those strategies. In late spring, we will publish a delivery plan that basically says, we have our strategy, we've made our budget decisions, over the next year, here's what we're going to do. And every year we will publish that again. And that will say, we promised to do this. Over the last year, what have we done? And what are we going to do over the next year? So every year you can hold us accountable. You know exactly what we said we'd do, and you know you can hold us accountable for whether or not we did it. That's openness, that's transparency, and that's also hard, because that means that if we don't deliver, if something slips, it's highly visible. And the same thing is true about the improvement plan that we've published, where we've been really clear about all the dates and what we're going to do. That is being open, that's transparent, and that is also not easy. It's easy to say it, it's not easy to live to it. And I think you can hold us accountable, and I hope our residents and businesses will hold us accountable in that way moving forward. The Ash Road Bridge thing, I honestly don't think, I think conversations have happened between Homes England and the council to the point where I am satisfied that there is no secrecy between those organisations. Homes England are absolutely clear about what we're doing and how we're doing it and why we're doing it. And so I'm comfortable that that is open and transparent. Has it always been done in the right way? I don't know. I can't really comment on that. Okay. It wouldn't be fair. But I'm comfortable that we're in a good position now. And you know, what I hope you will judge us on what we do going forward, and that we act in a way that's open and transparent. And I hope that speaking to you more regularly means that you can challenge me on exactly these hard things. Okay,
well, I do appreciate the accountability here. So that you're certainly living up to the accountability heading of the Nolan principle there. Right. So again, time's against us. So let's go on to value for money. Of course, everyone wants value for money everywhere. How can the council ensure we get it with your spending here?
With evidence and with analysis and with clarity. So, I'm an economist. Value for money is like my favourite thing. But in all seriousness, this is public money, and we are stewards of public money. It is our solemn duty to make sure that every penny goes as far as it can. And we want to demonstrate that to anyone and to everyone, so that residents have that confidence. It comes back to that trusted point, that they have that confidence that we are doing everything we can to use their money and make in the best possible way. That comes from being really clear about what we want to achieve, measuring that whether or not we're achieving those objectives, and making sure that all the choices that we put to members, to council, is supported by a clear cost-benefit analysis, so that everybody understands what they're signing up to. I think that's absolutely critical. You'll see that Guildford Borough Council, for the first time in ages, closed our accounts on time. We're going through our budget and medium-term financial plan process now, making that resource allocation in a way that's open and transparent, like co-creating that within the organisation, to make sure that we face all the decisions, we frame all the decisions properly, and we can make sure that value for money calculation is at the heart of that.
And is the audit process getting back on track?
Yes.
Good. So, and after the debacle of what's happened in the housing revenue account, are you confident that that's now under control and the same thing couldn't happen?
Yes, absolutely. So that's a reference, I think, to the fraud that happened in.
Well, potential fraud. It hasn't come to court. We know it's a fraud, suspected fraud, perhaps.
Thank you for correcting my language. You're absolutely right. Potential fraud, alleged fraud. So, yeah. That, I think, was a symptom of a deeper issue, which is we needed to get our governance and our financial controls right. I think you reported we've been privileged to have Richard Bates as our strategic director for finance and assets.
I don't think I reported you were privileged. I reported that he
had Well, I mean, Richard is top class, and I think what him and his team have been doing is putting in place all of those financial controls and that budgetary oversight that needs to be there and needs to be part of a trusted value for money organisation. So that's all in place, and Susan Sale, our strategic director for Legal and Democratic Services, has been doing the same on the governance side. And what has been absolutely brilliant, and I want to say a huge thank you, is that councillors from across the political aisle, from all political sides, have been supportive and engaged and bought into everything that we're trying to do to get things to run correctly. So they will always have their political differences, but everybody in that chamber wants Guildford, and the same on the Waverley side, wants Waverley to run well. So we've had nothing but support in everything that we've needed to do to get those basic bits back on track.
Okay, and the last column here is professionalism.
Yes.
Again, if you could like to summarise what you mean by that.
Well, officers, remembering that these are officer values, officers are here to provide the best evidenced professional advice to support members in their decision making, and the best professional service for residents and businesses in Guildford and Waverley. So this is about respecting our officers as the professionals that they are, which means supporting them with kind of professional training and certification and continuing professional development. But it also means leaning into that role as professionals and keeping kind of the political out of our non-political advice.
Okay. Now, one area of professionalism that has been criticised in the past, before your time, was that of project management. Do you feel you have sufficient in-house skills on project management now, or would you rely on outsourcing it? Because in the past, it does seem that some people have been called project managers without any training whatsoever. I was a project manager in the civil service, and that was my experience, because they couldn't answer even basic questions about what methodology they used, etc. Where are we with that in Guildford Borough Council?
So both in Guildford and in Waverley, we have some really good project managers.
And which methodology do they follow?
It depends. It depends on the it depends on the project. But we do, for example, we use managing successful programs and that sort of methodology for big program management. We have Prince 2 qualified managers. We have different type of PPM qualifications. There are agile people who are agile qualified. You have your Sigma 6.
And they're in-house.
They're in-house. So we have lots of those people in-house. However, as you know, local authorities deliver a lot of programs, a lot of projects, and there are different levels at which these things are delivered at. So you have your kind of IT projects and those sorts of updates. You have the sort of need for an enterprise portfolio-wide kind of oversight and governance, and then you have some of your big major programs, the sort of thing that would be an MPP, a major projects thing within the civil service. So we don't always have all of those skills in-house, and it's not always right that we have all of those skills in-house, because sometimes, you're just doing something big that's going to be a one-off, and you do want to bring in the best professionals to kind of support.
Are you confident there are functioning project boards of all the projects?
Yeah, we're getting better. I think the big thing that we need to do now is, so we have something called the I'm not going to get into all of the nerdy detail, but yeah, we have our portfolio monitoring is getting into a much better place. So for residents and businesses, that's about making sure that we as an organisation understand what is everything that we're trying to deliver. What does the delivery of all of that add up to? Is everything on track? Is everything delivering to budget and to timetable? Yes or no? Where are the risks, and where do we need to intervene? And that's really important as a sort of, when you're running an organisation, to understand where those risks are.
Okay. Now, all this could be described as talking the talk, Pedro. Are you confident you can really walk the walk?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, what I hope to, I'm 6 months in, and I think so far there are lots of things that give me confidence. So we've just had our first meeting on the Guildford side of the independent assurance panel. So that's the panel of experts we put together to look at the improvement plan that we've put in place for Guildford Borough Council. They looked at our improvement plan for the organisation as a whole, and the specific one for housing, and concluded that both of those at their first meeting were fit for purpose and right. So we've had a big vote of confidence from that external source. There are huge challenges still to come. We've got a new government. They've got they've just doubled our housing targets on the Waverley side. There are reforms coming to all sorts of different policy areas, and that will bring with it a series of challenges for Guildford and Waverley. But I would go beyond that. I am, just like the leaders and the executives in Waverley and at Guildford, I am ambitious for Guildford and Waverley's future, and that means that I want to go beyond the everyday and just think about what could we be, and how do we get us from where we are now to that to where we all want Guildford and Waverley to be.
Okay. Well, Pedro Wrobel, the joint CEO of Guildford and Waverley Borough Councils, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Martin.